Mrs. Stewart?
No, we don't.
Is there anyone who would like to speak? Then we're on to reports and discussion topics.
First report, or the only report we have tonight, would be the preparations that we're making for the new school year. And next week begins the new school year. So posted to the web and at your places is a Back to School Events 2012 page showing that showing the times for registration taking place yet this week, but also what's happening particularly on Monday. Monday is the first day back for the teachers, but also Monday is a day when we have many of our buildings open for open houses or back to school nights or meet your teacher, and it will be a busy, busy place. Notice on Crestdale, from 5 to 6 on Monday, we have an open house. Crestdale, as you will hear from Mr. Mays a little later in the board meeting, is coming together very nicely. There are some teachers who are, well, not just teachers, but teachers especially, who are working many, many hours to get their classrooms ready. But there are also contractors who are working all night so that they can get their work done while the building is relatively empty. But the building will be ready for students next week, and parents, students alike are welcome to come in at 5 o'clock to see the new Crestdale. Hibbard has had an open house a few times now, but again, there's so much that's happened at that building, and that also will be open for back to school night at 5 o'clock on Monday. The rest of the information is here. A lot of preparation has gone into making this school year happen. I would like to remind the public that we have a brand new organization to welcome our students back to. We have pre-K through 4 at our elementary buildings, 5-8 at our intermediate buildings, and it should be a whole new experience, particularly at the pre-K 4. Our emphasis is going to be on those early years, and we have put together quite a package, I think, in every building, and not just facility-wise, but also programmatically. At our intermediate schools, we have grades 5 and 6 joining what had been the middle school grades of 7 and 8, and those teachers are also coming together. It's really interesting to go into those buildings and see elementary teachers working side by side with what had been our middle school teachers. And so that's going to be a whole system that will be changing throughout the year as they find ways to work together very effectively. But right now, in the retreats that we've seen, the staff members are working as though they've been together for many years.
Nice.
That's great. I drove by Hibbard today, and the big cement trucks were out there. It's a lot going on there, too.
Mr. Mays will talk about that in just a little while.
On to action items.
Action items take us to some formal actions required of the budget process. Mr. Coddington has briefed you on what's required. In fact, I think he put together a calendar earlier in the summer, and this complies with that calendar, but I'll turn this over to him for a description of what he's asking.
Yeah. Tonight, the following items are submitted for your consideration and for approval to advertise by the Richmond Community School Board. 1, the 2013 budgets, Budget Form 1, 2, and 3. These are the budget forms required by the State Board of Accounts. We are required to publish in a designated paper. Form 3 is approved by the School Board of Trustees. Publishing Form 3 also notifies taxpayers of our public hearing on the 2013 budgets that will be held on August 22nd, with an adoption date of September 12th. The 2013 budgets are not being approved by this motion, but the administration will be authorized to advertise levies for the 2013 budget in the 6 taxing funds. The tax levies as shown on Form 3 to be advertised will not be the final levies, which will be typically lower. The higher levies are advertised so that the budget process can take into account unknown and uncontrollable occurrences and still provide Richmond Community Schools with all the revenues to which it is legally entitled. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approves the request to advertise the 2013 budgets as expressed in Form 3 as presented.
So moved.
Linda Morgeson makes the motion, and Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Comments and questions on this? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you. Now, the 2013 to 24 school bus replacement plan and the 2015 capital projects plan. Administration is requesting the approval of the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees for permission to publish the required notice to taxpayers for the public hearing on the 2013-2024 school bus replacement plan. This public hearing will occur on August 22nd with an adoption date of September 12th. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approves the request to advertise the notice to taxpayers of public hearing for the 2013-2024 school bus replacement plan as presented.
Do I hear a motion? Jeff Slifer makes the motion. Second by Suzanne Darengowski. Any comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is again carried.
Thank you. The 2013-2015 capital projects plan. The administration is requesting the approval of the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees for permission to publish the required notice to taxpayers for the public hearing on the 2013-15 capital projects plan. The public hearing will occur on August 22nd again, and the adoption date will be September 12th. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approves the request to advertise the notice to taxpayers of the public hearing for the 2013-15 capital projects plan as presented.
Pat Heine makes the motion, and Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Are there comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next action item is the cash and tuition rates. Mr. Coddington again.
Every year, we put an estimated what cash and transfer tuition payments would be for this next school year. Realizing that cash tuition, these are after the ADM dates, any resident in the state of Indiana that wants to attend Richmond Community Schools between now and September 16th for the 2013, it's September 14th, for the 2012-13 school year, can come at no tuition cost. Should they register after the 14th of September, you would take these numbers, divide up by 180, come up with a daily rate of what the person would owe for cash tuition for the rest of the year. So therefore, it is recommended the board approves the student transfer and cash tuition rates for the 2012-13 school year as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Dixie Robinson makes the motion, and Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And now we have an annual financial report that needs to be advertised. Mr. Coddington again.
In your board packet, and I believe on board docs, and then on that is our annual financial report for the 2011 school year. We do this every year. It's a state requirement. We're asking permission to advertise the annual financial report, then submitting it to the state.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Pat Heine makes the motion. Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
The next two items have to do with the work that we have asked a committee to do on the resolution of what to do with the cabin at Garrison and the caboose at Highland Heights. And Mr. Coddington has chaired that committee. He now has a recommendation to make tonight concerning the caboose, not the cabin.
Our committee has met twice, most recently on the July 31st. Had some lively input and some lively discussion on that. The recommendation that we have for the caboose comes in two parts. One, we need a resolution. In order for the Richmond Community Schools to dispose of the caboose that is located at Highland Heights Elementary, the School Board of Trustees must adopt a resolution finding that the caboose is valued at less than $1,000 and not needed for educational purposes. Therefore, it is recommended that the board approves the resolution for the Richmond Community Schools to dispose of the caboose located in Highland Heights Elementary as presented. I'd be glad to read the resolution, but I believe that it is on board docs and available for that. And we would ask that they recommend, that you approve the recommendation to obsolete the caboose as presented.
Do I hear a motion? Jeff Slifer makes the motion.
Second.
Pat Heine seconds the motion. Comments and questions on the caboose? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Now that we have an obsolete caboose, we've got a recommendation on now what to do with that caboose. The Cabin and Caboose Committee would like to recommend that the caboose at Highland Heights be donated to the Richmond Area Railroaders Society. They have agreed to move and restore the caboose at their expense. The committee feels that this is the best option and that the caboose will be enjoyed by many as it will be relocated in the Depot District when restored. Therefore, it is recommended the board approves the recommendation to donate the caboose to the Richmond Area Railroaders Society as presented. And we have Mr. Brandon here as a representative, should anyone have any questions.
Aaron Stevens makes the motion, and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Now, are there comments and questions concerning the caboose? Thank you for being here.
That's a really great resolution to that issue.
It is.
Lots of people can use it.
Pretty exciting to get some extra use out of it. I think that's great.
Well, you know, for a number of years, it's been, the usage of it has been limited out to just one area. But after the restoration and everything else that's going to happen with it and moving it down to the Depot District with everything else that is going on, you're going to have an entire community, and those who visit there on a regular basis will be able to really enjoy it.
I thought, first of all, the Christmas holiday festival,
yes.
it will be ready by then, won't it?
I do have a question on the timeline. Once it's removed from the site, how long do you suppose it will take before it's ready for public enjoyment?
Maybe this time next year.
Okay, so about a year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That leaves Christmas out, I guess.
This Christmas.
This Christmas.
Maybe the outside could be decorated.
Put lights on it, yeah.
Right, well, that's a wonderful, wonderful way of handling that, thank you.
Any other comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain due to some,
Okay.
She's a railroader.
Association with that group.
association with that group.
But positive association.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Pam, you got that, right? Okay, thank you. And thank you for being here.
Now for the
Suzanne?
sticky one.
Oh, I was
Now
going to
for the
say, that was my next question. What about the other part?
The cabin does not have the monetary value that would prohibit the board from doing what they want. But the moving and putting the cabin back up, we've gotten two preliminary quotes on that, and both of them were between $45,000 and $65,000.
Wow.
So now you have a $3,000 cabin that costs $65,000 to relocate it. We had looked at some different options. After much discussion, we've come to the conclusion that that we need to immediately secure the cabin by boarding up all windows and doors to minimize the risk of vandalism, and that'll be done very quickly. And the other recommendation is to form a committee of elementary and intermediate principals to assess the interest level and recommendations for the cabin and report back to the Cabin and Caboose Committee by November 1st, 2012. At this kind of a cost, should the board approve to do it, we want to make sure that there's the interest level, the educational, the curriculum level that would support it. We would hate to make that move, have that expense, and then not have the interest follow it. So the recommendation is to form a committee. And the reason we gave a November 1st date is with the start of school, new grade reconfiguration, it's probably not number one on anybody's list between now and next Tuesday, but given the smooth start of school that we're going to have, it will be on somebody's radar screen in September and October to give us a recommendation.
Great. Thank you. We don't need, there's no action to be
There's no
taken.
action on that, that's just a
Okay.
report.
Okay.
Can I ask a
Jeff?
question to the, has there been discussion with like the Wayne County Historic Museum or, and
So the cost
no
is
interest from
prohibitive.
them or?
They've got two.
They've got two of them,
So-
okay.
So will our committee now be formerly known as the Cabin Committee? No, on the Cabin Cruise.
I don't think we can change the
Just because the work is
Require
over doesn't
action
mean
to
it
do
wasn't
that,
part
wouldn't
of
it?
But what I know is the cabin has emotional connections for an awful lot of people. I mean, they remember spending the night there and doing all sorts of things.
But
and
it's,
so
makes so much sense to gauge the level, I mean, you really
Programmatic
do
agent,
want
yeah.
programs to happen there if you're gonna make that. I mean, I'm all for making the expenditure if it's gonna get used.
And in the meantime, maybe some partnerships can be built, or, someone might just say, hey, I'll move that cabin.
But the biggest expense on moving that cabin is the fireplace. You can't move
Really?
the fireplace. So it has to come off, and then you have to build all the
Uh-huh.
fireplace.
Oh, my goodness.
How long has it been out at Garrison?
It's 1972, wasn't it, the bicentennial? Or 76?
76.
where did it come
I
from?
think they started thinking about it.
Oh, probably. Well, you were probably in on it, so.
It was a committee.
Where did it come from?
I say it takes
It was
4 years.
discovered as the land was being prepared to build C.R. Richardson.
Right.
It was a home in that neighborhood.
It was sort of buried inside
Buried
another
in-
structure, right?
Right.
Wow.
I think that's an interesting part of the story, how it was discovered and where it was discovered.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Cotting.
Thank you.
Linda was on that committee. Do you have any other?
So was Aaron.
Aaron was there too?
No, we just want to make sure that if we do utilize those funds to move it, that it is included in our programming for many of our children.
Even more than before.
Exactly. We want there to be ownership. I mean, we could, as a committee, we talked about this a lot, we could have made a recommendation, but we want the ownership to come from the people that are going to be using it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
What about you, Aaron? Did you have anything you wanted to say, or?
Nothing more than I've already said.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. We'll move on to a projects update.
And Mr. Mays, would you like to come to the podium and talk about the projects
trucks.
as they are right now?
Thank you. This is a proud day.
Oh,
We have,
good
at
news. Build
Test,
it up.
we had 2 classrooms that we had to renovate, and they're basically completed, except we do have a few cabinets or casework we have to put in, and the only reason why we don't have it in is because they back-ordered the material laminate on us, and that unfortunately, at Test, all the laminate, all the cabinets has been discontinued, and so that we're having to pick another color, or more of a neutral color, and we're waiting on that. Other than that, those 2 classrooms are ready for students, and we still have the counters where we can put the computers. It's just a couple storage cabinets that we don't have. But all the other classrooms at Test are ready, and it would behoove anybody to go look at the 5th and 6th grade classrooms there, and at Dennis. I mean, you're all going to be surprised on what those teachers have done with those classrooms. At Star, the parking lot is complete, except we're putting up some new fence. They started that today, and it'll be completed tomorrow. We have some markings on the asphalt, and we talked to Mrs. Quinn on how she was going to operate the parking lot and pick up and drop off of students, and we're ready for that for the first day of school. At Baxter, everything is completed at Baxter except for a little bit of touch-up and a little bit of base, and they're scheduled to do that tomorrow, but they're also ready for students. At Hibbard, the gymnasium floor will be completed by Friday, and it'll be ready for students on Tuesday because Mrs. Gibbs is going to open up the bleachers, and I think when the students come in, that's where they're going to sit, so they go to their assignment. So the first part of the building they'll see is the new gymnasium floor. The renovation is totally completed in the building, except for some minor touch-up, and that's to be expected. The parking lot up on top of the hill there, we've relocated the track already, so that can be used. We have football practice up there for the intermediate schools. They're pouring the concrete walks and curbs, and the next thing is to do is to put stone and asphalt, and that'll be start to do that next week. At Dennis, the cafeteria and kitchen and corridor area, we're having the final inspection from the city tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, which means that project is done, and they'll give us our occupancy permits for Thursday. The minor renovation of the 2 classrooms upstairs, the one is the fax room that we had to put some new walls, carpet, paint, rework the ceilings. That is all completed. And all the other classrooms are ready for the 5th and 6th graders, as well as the 7th and 8th. But we've concentrated on the 5th and 6th. Some of the rooms we had to put new carpet in. A couple of teachers have taken it on their own and have painted some of their classrooms using the right paint and the right color, and that looks great. Now, Crestdale, here's our list of Crestdale. We're picking up the trash, we're cutting the grass, we're cleaning the windows. All of the renovated classrooms, office, restrooms, corridors, cafeteria are ready for the students on Tuesday. Jane Moss had several retired, and I mean several retired librarians in her library today. And they were feverishly looking for books, putting the books away on the shelves. They were creating study areas, reading areas, and to me it looked like they were having fun putting all those books up. But we're ready to move in. Now on the new edition, the schedule of the new edition is for move-in over fall break. We already have the roof on. We're starting the brick tomorrow. The mechanical, electrical, and sprinklers are being roughed in, and the walls are being installed. We're also installing a safety fence between the playground and new construction. We've worked with Mrs. Hobbs on how she's going to have the students go out to the playground. The playground's 100% available to be used, and so the building it's ready and for the start of school. And we're proud to announce that all the buildings that we had construction in they're ready for school, and that's with the help of the local contractors. Everybody at Warner have just gone way over the top on moving, helping construction. The construction technology classes at the high school with their boys, and the technology classes helping Mr. Tidrow and all that. With all those people, that's why we're ready for school.
Thank you. That's amazing. Linda?
One thing that you didn't mention that we had talked about, or you had come and talked to us, was the buses at ESA, how they're going to be.
Yes, we talked to Mrs. Quinn and on how the buses would line up on 20th Street, and that she was going to schedule the bus riders first, the pickup of students next that are out in front, and the walkers third. And that, so that she said that that's worked in the past, and she feels real confident with that schedule.
We've also discussed approaching the city about allowing or discontinuing parking on some of that stretch so that the buses can line up all the way along there.
Yes, they'll be, basically,
It's permission, yeah.
they'll be able to line up from the corner of C Street north to that, close to that first house. And she has quite a few buses. So we're all set for that.
At one point, you were talking about using the parking lot later on for
What-
bus.
That's right.
That,
No, that's still in the works. If this doesn't work, in fact, we're going to the city this month for approval to put a curb cut in 20th Street and also a curb cut in 19th Street so that we can rework the parking of the new, or the drive of the new parking lot. The other thing we looked at was on C Street, on the north side of C Street between 19th and 20th, making that for bus drop-off and pick-up. The only problem you have there is with 19th being one way, it's hard for the buses to swing around and go to 40, go to Main Street, or to even E Street without having to go 2 more blocks down and circle. So that's why we kept that on 20th Street for that access of the buses.
makes sense.
Did you talk about Baxter?
Yes.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Can you go over that
Baxter is
again?
ready. The rooms have been renovated. The computers are there. We've taken out walls that she wanted taken out, and we've added a couple walls at the data room. So we have that all locked up, and because several years ago, when they renovated Baxter, Westview, and a couple other ones, the data rooms were part of the libraries, and that there was no barrier between the two. And so that now with some of the recordings that we have to take with the cameras and so forth, those rooms have to be locked up.
Okay, thank you.
This, my question is kind of silly. What are we calling Baxter? Is it Baxter Community Youth, or is it,
Community Youth Services at Baxter.
okay, Community Youth Services at Baxter?
Yes.
Good. Well, because I didn't know what to call it. Thank you.
And we will redo that signage that's there. The sign that's there, which talks about early school start and birth flight, is coming down, if it's not already down today. And then they're going to rework that and put a sign up for that building.
Community Youth Services at Baxter. Okay.
I wanted to ask about, at ESA, where the cars go around, or I don't know which direction they're gonna be going. Is there enough swing to get out on 19th Street?
On the ninth, yes,
It's-
The way they go in and circle back around and come around. Now, if that's awkward and they have a problem with that, that's why we want to move the entrance to 19th Street and come off a straight, let the students off, make a left-hand turn to the new entrance, and then a right-hand turn onto 19th Street.
Yeah, because
So we want to see how that happens. We're going to put a barrier on the drive, on the existing drive now, so they have to go through the new pickup and drop-off area. They can't take a shortcut
That's
through
good.
there. And that's why we're putting some additional fence up for the safety of the students.
it'd be nice if there was no parking all the way around that school.
Oh, I know. That's a narrow,
It
area.
is really
Yes,
narrow
yes,
there.
Yes. I think Dixie can attest to, are we going to be ready at Crestdale? She was out there the other day, and she said, I don't know.
Well, I am so glad Jane got help.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Mays,
thank
for
you.
everything. On
I
to
can't
our-
even believe that, to be honest. I'm just like so impressed that all of that is, I know that you said it and I believed you, but there's so many things that could go wrong. Weather being one of them, and you had some. I'm just impressed, beyond belief.
So am I.
That's
It
crazy.
has been impressive work on the part of everyone.
Everyone.
Including the teachers. They're
Absolutely.
not, we haven't talked about the role of the teachers in this renovation process, but the
Had
teachers,
to pack up and.
and not just the teachers at Crestdale. I mean, we've had teachers all over the system move from one place to the other.
And many of them have had to sort of hover and wait too, because we
They have had,
weren't
that's right.
ready, but and as soon as they were, man, they've been in there and putting stuff away. Like I said, you're right, every
Classrooms-
person.
classrooms
You
are ready.
suppose 10% of our teachers stayed in the same room? Would there be
moved-
many more than that?
We moved about 135 teachers.
Oh my goodness, that is
135
just,
teachers. Wow.
that's just a lot of moving. And it's impressive. It's the only word I can think to use.
Well, I think also the public, as well as all of us, you need to see the buildings.
Absolutely.
They're just gorgeous.
Well, and
Very
nice.
nice.
I had an email request today from a parent who is looking at 4 districts in the area. I'm assuming they're Wayne County districts, could be one in Ohio, I'm not sure. But his only concern, and he had 6 questions, but they all revolved around the issue of security and safety for students. And what a great story we have to tell
Absolutely.
when we have reorganized our system to continue to provide for the safety and the security of our kids through the preservation and sustainability of our Safe Schools, Healthy Students grant, our Centerstone people, our resource officers. We have done all of this
That's right.
reorganization to keep some of those support services
Yep.
going that we know are helping our students.
Not to mention the physical safety with changing of parking lots and pickups, and I
That's
mean,
right.
it's just phenomenal.
How did we do on the bus, as far as getting parents to call in, Mr. Coddington?
There's a lot of activity right now.
I
Yeah.
bet so.
But I know that last time when we talked, was it about 50% of the parents who
40
hadn't been able to
40%,
reach?
Yeah, unable to reach, but now, between the Palladium item and the radio, parents are calling in, so every parent that we can contact
Mhm.
before next Tuesday is
Mhm.
going to help us have a smoother day.
Mm-hmm. Right,
We got a call.
That's great.
good,
We know the time.
okay.
I
Thank
saw
you.
a comment from a parent or a grandparent who was frustrated because she had gotten the calls. And I thought, you probably need to update your information. You probably have your information and not your daughter's or
Got the
whatever,
number
so-
somewhere.
Yeah, so it was on the paper somewhere, I bet you.
Okay,
6:40.
on to our work session.
If you recall, at a previous board meeting, the board authorized the submission of an application for the Head Start program. It is now open, or was open, as of July 17th. That no longer was open. We met our deadline for submission. And we also, at that point, told board members that we would be coming back to the board with further conversation on what this would mean should we be successful in getting that application approved. This does not mean, and I want to emphasize, we have not received authorization for this program. But if we do receive authorization for that program, there are some changes, there are some implications and impacts. We think that they're very positive for the Richmond Community Schools. So what we would like to do tonight is talk about 3 basic areas, and I'm sure that will lead, the conversation on those areas will lead into more questions, and over the next few weeks at the different board meetings, we'll dedicate some time to talking about this, answering questions that have come up in one discussion in the next, and we know that there will be additional conversation necessary. But I'd like to start by talking about the organizational impact. And in the submission of the application, we had to follow, Dr. Parker will talk about this, we had to follow 50-some pages of criteria set by the federal government. And one of those was to talk about the governance structure. And so I'd like to begin the conversation tonight by talking about the governance structure, which is on the screen. So Dr. Parker, I'll turn it over to you, and you can talk about, because she was the writer of this. Well, I shouldn't say she was the writer, but she helped with the writing of this. If you remember, Dawn Sonsini one of the new administrators at Northeastern Schools, but was a teacher with us at the time, actually was the author of the application, but I'll turn it over to Dr. Parker now.
Okay, and I will just tell you, just stop and ask questions when something comes up. But this is the governance that was required by Head Start. There has to be a oversight board, and because we are a public school corporation, the Board of School Trustees can serve in that role. And so obviously the school board oversees the entire program, and the superintendent is the leader of the school corporation, would be the next person in the chain of command. And then there are lots of operational pieces within our current organizational structure which would play a role in this, because Mrs. Bergdahl is our person in charge of preschool. It made sense for the director of Head Start to report to Mrs. Bergdahl, who oversees the preschool program for the corporation. We will also have a director of finance overseeing some pieces of the Head Start, the transportation, which in the grant we have proposed that Sodrel and Student Transit would provide the transportation for us through a contracted services arrangement. Food services for Richmond Community Schools would provide the meals and the snacks. And then facilities would be overseen by the director of finance and the people who work within that area. And then the Director of Human Resources would oversee the human resources piece through the Director of Head Start. The evaluations would be completed by the Director of Head Start. We'll be using the RISE teacher evaluation rubric that we'll be using for our teachers. Technology would support the Head Start site, and we've included that as part of our in-kind. And then the positions that we've proposed within the grant are all positions that are required through Head Start. We are required to address not only the education, but we have to address nutrition, we have to address mental health, we have to address physical health. So all of those positions are required positions. The Family Services Coordinator, the Nutritionist, Health Services Coordinator, the Education and Disabilities Coordinator, the teachers. And in the grant, one thing that we've done is we've proposed all of the Head Start teachers would be bachelor's level teachers, and so that we would have licensed teachers, and the assistant teachers would have at least a 2-year associate's degree in early childhood development. So that's basically what the governance structure looks like. Within Head Start, there are some committees that are required. They have an advisory council and a policy council and a parent committee. And I think, Mrs. Morrison, you may have served on one of these at one time. And they meet and they periodically review what's happening with the program. We're required to have parent participation on those committees. And so it really encourages parental involvement. But again, they are not the governing body of the Head Start program. This board would be the governing body.
Pat had a
Did
question.
you want questions while we're doing?
Sure.
I had a question. Can the people in these positions, the Family Services Coordinator, Nutritionist, Health, can they serve other parts of our school system, or do they have to be designated solely for the Head Start program?
They would be solely Head Start employees.
Was having the teachers being certified, was that a recommendation of the grant? Or was
Well,
that
the
something-
legislation says by 2014, 50% of the teachers in any program must be bachelor's level teachers. And so we just felt it was important to go that way.
Will that requirement be also for our other preschool teachers?
Unless the funding stream changes, it can't be.
Yeah.
Because we aren't funded for
Right.
preschool.
Correct. We are
This
not
is
funded.
a question that I've received, and I don't know whether this is the appropriate time. Why, how come, why were we eligible to even apply to be a Head Start?
We were, actually, any school system is eligible. I mean, we have some of the support structures necessary in
Right.
place already to do this. But we were not the only organization Wayne County that could have done that.
Okay.
There are specifically some financial structures that need to be in place for that application to move forward. We have those financial pieces. We also have the governance structure that would be helpful in that kind of application. But it certainly isn't that we were the only, and there may be others within the area that have applied.
Well, and the federal government, what I try to explain, the federal government, this program asks for people to apply, not specifically us, but the
Right.
license or application
It
comes
was
through
open
once in
for
a while.
competitive bid.
That's what I needed-
And I
couldn't
think it's
think of.
important to note that it's not a for-profit venture. It is open only to public school corporations, not-for-profit organizations. It's not a money-making venture at all.
We saw this as an opportunity to streamline some instructional and social support for students who are preschool and moving into the school system. We saw that as an obvious advantage that we could offer. We already have a preschool program that serves students very well. We have the data to demonstrate it. In fact, it was demonstrated in the grant application. And we think that that kind of structure and advantage ought to be extended to all students who are eligible for those services. I can also tell you that there are some school corporations in the state that have this kind of structure. And as a superintendent of a system that had Head Start right in the classrooms with the other classes, as I did before I came to Richmond, I can tell you that it's not just the Richmond schools, or I shouldn't say it's not just the students of Head Start who would serve to be given an advantage here, but Richmond itself, I think, could benefit from that kind of structure being a part of the system. The Head Start program offers a lot in the way of showing us how to involve parents. I think the parental involvement piece is a real strength, and we could learn a lot from that.
It is Wayne County, right?
Correct.
Did you have more on that piece?
Any more questions about the governance? And then I also provided you with the budget justification, which is really the budget narrative that breaks down all of the areas where we would be expending funds and the amount of funds that would be a part of the federal grant. And then we're required to have a 20% match, which can be cash or in kind. And there are guidelines within the grant that tell you how much in kind can be charged for different services. And so there are probably in kind services that will be provided that we didn't even think about at the time of this grant. But again, anyone here who's participated in any committee at Head Start, when you go and you participate, you sign in and you sign an in-kind form saying, I'm donating 2 hours of my time, and this is how much time I've given you, and that becomes a part of the in-kind. And so all the things that Richmond Community Schools would do to support Head Start would be considered in-kind, the technology. So those are all included there as well. And those amounts probably will be fluctuating and change from year to year. But I don't anticipate having any difficulty meeting that 20% match through in-kind. So we've not anticipated any general fund dollars to support this.
Is this going to put any stress or overtax any of our administration or food service, technology, all those areas in any way?
I think it will be extra responsibility for many of the areas within our district, but that's why we're here. And it certainly won't stress us to the point that we can't continue to provide the services we're providing. And, we reallocate people all the time as needed. And no one that we talked to in the course of writing the grant said, oh, no, that's not possible. We can't do that. It's, when you look at our mission and our vision and the goals of Richmond Community Schools, we have no choice but to move forward.
Makes sense.
And then academically with our kids, what you have seen with preschool already, how do you see this as a academic benefit to our kids?
Well, as we've talked about preschool over the last 8 to 10 years here in Richmond Community Schools, we've talked about how our students come to us not ready for kindergarten. And we've always met them where they are, but whatever we can do to expose them to lots of great language models, lots of great literacy, lots of great shared reading and shared writing, and preparing them for school, not just academically, but socially and behaviorally as well, to learn how to sit for any length of time and to listen. Those things can only advance what we can do with our students once they come to us in kindergarten.
Well, and I don't know if you have this material memorized, but in the grant, we demonstrated the success of our students who have gone through our preschool program as they've progressed through the years. Do you have any of that material
Memorized?
memorized?
No.
Okay, we could pull that up, though. share
What I
that.
can tell you is, the first cohort that we looked at, which I believe are now in 7th grade, they had gains in 3rd grade, and those gains continued every year. They didn't ever seem to have a drop-off from the gains that they demonstrated earlier in their educational careers. The other thing is that that group of students typically did as well as or better than students who didn't attend preschool, which is particularly impressive considering the fact that, about 60% of those students had been identified as students with some sort of a disability. So, pretty impressive.
I read somewhere 306 students the program is authorized for 306 students?
Correct.
The Head
Okay,
Start is.
and we're talking about how many students if we hire 9 teachers? That's what was in the times, and then 17, the
17
ratio is
students.
17 to 1. So that's 153. So are we
For
looking
morning
at
and afternoon.
Morning and afternoon.
Okay. All right.
And is that 5 days a week?
4 days a week.
306. Okay.
And I think it should be noted that, at least when I was involved with Head Start, the expectation is that you fill those classrooms.
Absolutely, and a waiting list.
So it's very important to.
Well, as I've thought about this, I guess it isn't even a question, it's almost my sermon I want to give. It's not even about Head Start, it's about the power of preschool and making sure that early education is all that it can be. And the alignment, if we have the opportunity to align experiences starting at age 3 through 12th grade, it just makes sense to me, since we're in that business and we know how to do that. This board went out on a limb way back in 2001 for full-day kindergarten when nobody else was doing it, as well as preschool, and making room for those two because we recognized it. And then 2 years ago when we worked on our vision, our literacy statement says, brain research says that we have a window, and if we don't have control of that window, other than for just 2 or 3 years, then we have more work to do on the other end. So you put the time in on one end or the other. So as a philosophy, looking at the best way to get more kids in preschool, I'm all for it. So, I mean, that's what excites me about this particular project.
I also wanted to bring up, I'm sorry, Linda.
No, that's okay.
I also wanted to bring up that all of this is online on Board Docs for the public, or anyone who has any questions about it. You can read the entire grant if you want to. And it is.
How many pages did you say?
233. You can read parts of it or all of it, but it's very interesting.
It's a good look at who we are as a community.
Yes, yes. A lot of sobering statistics. Linda?
I'm not sure whether this is the appropriate place to ask this, but I would think it would be. Since one of our buildings is being recommended to be repurposed, one of our buildings that was closed, C.R. Richardson. So what kind of work will that building need, and where will that money come from to take care of the needs of that building?
Well, in looking at the building and walking through with Mr. Mays and the environmental services staff, there aren't going to be too many changes that need to be made structurally in the building. It's a sound public school corporation building. And so some of the things that we believe need to be done were included in the grant, things such as putting up a fence to make sure that the playground is fully enclosed for the safety of the students. Other than that, just some minor cosmetic changes. So not too many structural changes would need to be made. We've included some dollars for preschool appropriate playground equipment. At this point, when we go to the grant site, we can see the inventory that's a part of the current Head Start, but none of the playground equipment was included on that inventory. I don't know if it belongs to Head Start, but once the grant is awarded, if we should get the grant, then we'll have time to see what can be repurposed from the current Head Start program. We may need more things or fewer things than we think.
Well, that was kind of my second question was, so the buses and the materials and so forth that are now a part of Head Start property would be given to the grant recipient? Is that
Correct.
the way that works?
Correct.
Aaron
So
had
what
a
about
question.
the,
After you're done.
okay. Because I was wondering how this was going to affect the way that Head Start is now positioned throughout the community. And so, you know, I mean, I think that we have to be concerned about that also.
Well,
And
the good thing is
Up to
that the
that.
grant will be awarded in October, and we will have from October until August to ease that transition. So it won't happen overnight. We'll have that amount of time to transition everything if we get the grant.
So what about the buildings that,
The buildings are not owned by Head Start, so.
even their portable classrooms, like that they have in Hagerstown and,
Oh, no, they're not owned by Head Start.
Aaron?
Were there previously concerns of handicap accessibility in that building that was brought up when we were talking about the redistricting earlier?
No.
It depends on how you would use the building. In a traditional school sense, yes, there were some concerns. But the use of this building for that program would probably be only on one level.
Correct.
And it is handicap accessible on either level. It's just that if you're going to use both levels, then you have some issues.
Okay.
There is no elevator.
I remember there had been considerable amount of discussion on that, which also was included in our decision-making on it, but,
Well, I think it's a good question. You two have raised that question. Why would this building be a good one now? And the implication is, you know, we've made a decision to move programs out of that building, but we've made a decision to move a traditional school out of that building. And if you're serving a homogeneous group, as we would be with just preschool, your needs are very different than they would be serving a wide range of students on two different levels. And it's not a bad building if you're only serving a very small age range of students. In fact, it's still
wonderful. It has some amenities that
structure.
most preschools don't, such as a gym and a multipurpose room and.
Stage.
Library,
Yeah.
cafeteria.
all right.
Did you want to move on? Did you have?
The other thing that I provided for you was just a timeline of how that transition might happen. And we did include in the grant with the director and secretary being employed starting in January. Again, we don't know that would be a part of the approved grant or not, but we feel it's important to get those people on board to help with that transition and getting everything in place so that we would be ready to go in August.
Okay. Jeff?
If we're fortunate enough to be accepted for the grant, the length of time that I read was 5 years?
Right.
I guess that goes to the question also with the building, because in this 5-year proposal, I realize funds can change, but I think part of our cost or our thought process with the Richardson building was long-term renovation cost and, $5 to $6 million to do that. So I'm assuming that this funding would work on the same process every year, 80%? or,
Correct.
So I guess I'm a little concerned about the capital maintaining the building because, we're truly making a 5-year commitment.
Yeah.
So,
Keep in mind that we've also had informal conversations, discussions with a number of other youth-serving agencies. And the beautiful thing about this particular program, if it should come to pass, is that we could have a number of organizations working out of that building. And those other organizations could all be working towards the maintenance and preservation of that same facility.
so we could actually rent part of the building to help cover the capital cost.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love this house. And Mr. Gotti does too.
It's starting to sound much more like a
Well,
win.
and the other thing too is that first year budget has some dollars in there for startup costs, things such as purchasing curriculum and classroom equipment, which would not be included in subsequent years, and so that would free up some dollars to do some of the things that need to be done.
So you talked about the don't expect any general fund cost, but, so we don't expect capital cost, we don't expect none of the taxing funds?
We'll have capital costs at CR for 3 years regardless.
Regardless, and I understand, and I think a lot of people need to understand that
Right.
we still have to maintain
By
the buildings
law.
and keep the heat on, so,
Keep the heat,
right.
maintain the grounds, do this. So the additional costs, if a chiller would go down at CR and completely, we'd replace it today. So we
Right.
don't, so it's not like we're going for, now there will be some additional savings, and they were built into the budget for utilities, to pay their own way on the utilities, and to do this from the savings we're garnering this fall from not having it open, they would be picking up the difference.
Well, I think it's important, and I read a lot of that, and I did read the grant. But I think it's important also for the public to understand that this venture is, we're not gonna come back and ask to raise their property tax. We're not gonna come back.
Right.
That's not the intent of this, so, because the first thing, the first
Correct.
thought that came to my mind is monetarily, how is this gonna impact us? And how is this gonna prevent us from doing our job that we need to do with the existing students that we have? So I think it's important that we understand that as we go out.
And to coattail that point, if I could, on the financial impact of it, you made the point that some of the public may or may not know this, but we were going to have a cost with maintaining that building for the next 3 years by state law anyway, because it's got to stay on our rolls then. And since we're going to be putting in, so to speak, pennies and dollars into that, we might as well, if this opportunity comes about, utilize the money that we're putting in. It's not that, this is an opportunity.
Further our cause.
This is an opportunity that came about after the lengthy discussions and the ultimate decision to close the building, and then this was presented. And so now, instead of just having, throwing X amount of dollars into a building that's going to be vacant, now we have the opportunity to put money that is going to be put to great service into the community for a building that will no longer be vacant at that point, at least for 5 years, so.
Correct. That's a
We
good
get
point.
the grant.
If we get the grant.
If we get the grant.
Right. Well, and I was thinking dollars and cents, but I was thinking dollars and cents down the pike in terms of remediation. So we have 120 kids maybe each year who come to us with less need for various things. And our preschool has shown that our program has done that. And so if we have,
Ratchet that up a
you
notch.
ratchet that up a little bit. I get kind of excited about demonstrating in 3 or 4 years after we have the grant. Guys, I'm a positive thinker here, not if, after. But think about what we can demonstrate in terms of that result. So, people accuse me of being a Pollyanna. The glass is always half full for me, but I get kind of excited when I am able to think about funds elsewhere saved in the general fund, because we might not need some of that other stuff. But, but
Do you
that's,
have comments that you would like to add, or?
Oh, I think I've added plenty.
well, if I read the speak out and all of those kind of things, I think we've addressed the questions that were there. The big picture questions were, why in the world would Richmond Community Schools get into this business when they have other business to do? And I think we've demonstrated that this is part
I was
of
gonna say, this
This-
isn't
business.
other
It's a
business. this
continuation
isn't.
and alignment.
This
Yeah.
is core business.
And the financial questions were raised a bit, how much are you gonna be taking away? And the question that Aaron raised about, well, you just closed the building,
Right.
why are you gonna open it again?
That's a fair
So
question.
I think those are all fair questions, but I think we've answered them this evening. I hope that the public can, we may wanna put our frequently asked questions back on the website.
It's never left.
But encourage
It's
people.
got one today.
That's a good
Yeah,
venue,
start up there.
though,
Yeah, it is a good
for
venue.
people who have questions about this. Okay. Linda?
Are we ready to, well, I just wanted to kind of coattail on what Pat had said about preschool and the importance of preschool. And I guess that this conversation, I would hope, would lead us into further conversation about preschool programming in general, including our own preschool program and exactly where we're going. Where are we headed? And, what is the plan for the future of our preschool? So I would hope that we would expand this conversation even further, hopefully.
And it fits right into
I
our
guess
master
I'm
plan, as
Kind
we,
of requesting
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So.
Well, and part of our vision, and when we think about, the federal government saying that preschool or Head Start teachers have to be licensed in 2014, or at least 50% of them, how can we begin to move toward that? I know you said funding and all that kind of stuff, but that's minor. Right, but that's part of the question that we have to look at, if we're gonna have it, is it the
right.
quality that we want and need?
and maybe our next work session that deals with Head Start can also deal with our preschool program. Did someone over there had a question?
I'll hold the question.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Parker. Next up is our press conference. Brian, did you have any questions?
I don't think.
Consent items?
Consent items include the approval of minutes, recommendation from Human Resources, including an addendum that has been posted to the web, and also approval of the Common Wage Committee.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent items as presented? Jeff Slifer makes the motion.
Second.
And
Second.
Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Are there questions on the consent items? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now we're on to our second public commentary. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Signed up? No? Follow up on old business.
At the last board meeting, I think it was Mrs. Morgeson who asked about school grades. Are we going to be projecting school grades? And at that point, I said we would be working with our principals to do that. It was my understanding at the time that they had the growth data that they needed. That is not the case. They don't have the growth data. And Dr. Parker received word from the State Department that the grades, school grade classifications will be coming out
Mid-August.
mid-August. And following that, we'll get the growth data.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's impossible for us to do any projections.
That was my reaction. What? Well, how,
Well, never mind.
they will have the growth data for their use, but in order for us to have it, it has to be put into the Learning Connection, and that apparently takes some time. And so we have looked at where we are in terms of overall passing percentage for English language arts and math. But as you'll recall, when how we will calculate those grades, that's just the starting point. We can actually receive an additional point when we look at the growth at that bottom 25%, an additional point when we look at the growth of that top 75%. And again, if you think about what that growth model data, where that comes from, each individual student got put into a cohort group. And then we look at what that cohort did in terms of improvement from last year to this year. We have no way of knowing what the rest of that cohort group did until they give us that data. And so they will release those grades in mid-August. We'll look at those, and then when they release the growth model, we'll be checking their math.
Well, I wanted to, you always check the math before it comes out, and that's what,
This one is not possible,
yeah.
and it may never be, because I don't know that they'll ever be releasing the growth data prior to the classifications of schools.
Pat?
Does every school, private and public, receive the same information in the same grade? I mean, a grading, they're all,
Where the students are, the growth data.
everybody, wherever the student is, we're all held accountable in the same
So
way.
private, parochial, public charters, all of them, right?
They all have, every student has a, for crying out loud, the
STN?
number, the student
test
testing
number.
number.
Oh,
And
that's
so
right, that's
all
right.
of them have that, they're all being monitored, and so that's how that's possible.
Oh my gosh, complex.
Will we do, this is this sort of PR question again. Before the grades come out, do we get the information prior to the release? Do we have any time?
I don't know that. Will there be an embargoed period?
There normally is, but I think that the embargo was released to the media about the same time it was released to us.
I guess I just
On the
want us to
results, so.
have the opportunity to speak to the local media people at the time it comes out, just because the state is just very terrible about helping explain to the general public what certain things mean.
I'll tell you, in recent months, Brian has been my first point of contact.
Well, and I guess that and any of the other media outlets, I would just encourage that because, like I said, the state just shoves it out there with very little explanation and very little and zero localization. And just, we need to be, have some forethought about that as much as possible and help localize it because it's just such a complicated, crazy bunch of information.
Yeah. And I should say that's Brian Zimmerman from the Palladium.
Oh,
Item.
yes, there you go. Give you credit
For the
where
welfare of
credit
those
is
who
due.
may be watching.
Okay, next up is superintendent and board reports, reflections, and celebrations. We have so much going on.
Well, if we don't celebrate that band,
Oh, my goodness.
we're missing a great opportunity. They just looked fantastic, and they should have been number one. They were in my book.
Well, they always are.
Well, that's right.
We're gonna have to get somebody on the judging.
I heard from a number of people, and I was just sick that I didn't get to go, but I heard from a number of people that their music and their plan was more complicated than anyone's,
They were
and that
so
they
good.
just executed it flawlessly, so.
They will be here at a later date, they always
will
are.
be.
Good.
And you know what else we should note? If you were there, the parent support was just outstanding. I mean,
And not just that day, because we happen to live in the area.
That's right.
And they were out building props and sitting there watching practice for months.
And the
So,
heat.
In the heat, definitely.
Go ahead.
And celebrating those band parents, and not celebrating the band parents. We have some fanatical parents who support, their sons and their daughters, when it comes to the athletic programs, for all of those. But to see from the end of the school year up until the end of the school year, the support that the parents are giving. And if you would drive by any of the practices on the hottest days of this summer, you would see a lot of parents who were out there ready to give water and everything else to any of the kids and all out there. And that was, again, evident by their support there last Friday as well, too. So our band is fantastic. It's one of the top 3 or 4 bands in the state of Indiana consistently every year, and has been and will continue to be. But we probably need to even give greater mention to the parents who are becoming even more fanatical now about our music and our marching band program than have been in the last 30 or 40 years.
It's nice when they're expecting good things.
Yeah.
Linda had a question.
Linda?
Well, you know, it takes great teachers to lead, and the band is just one example. But, you know, celebrate isn't really the word that is strong enough to say to our teachers, wow, thanks, because our teachers are multitaskers. They have been trying to have a little bit of time off to enjoy the summer, but at the same time, some of them, many of them, obviously just got finished packing boxes, and then it was time to unpack the boxes, and they have participated in staff development. And, you know, as they're doing all these things, they're thinking about their students and what they're going to be doing in their classrooms and trying to mentally prepare for them, for the most important resource, our students. And I just want to say thank you in advance to all of our teachers for everything that you are doing to prepare for students next week. And I just hope that they have a wonderful, successful year. So.
And I would also like to tag on to that, because it's not just the teachers. I saw the teachers recruiting husbands, dads, moms, kids, neighbors, retired teachers, and others to help them, and they sort of go unsung, but I saw them with my own eyes, lugging and packing boxes back into the buildings and what have you. So I think we have a lot of people to thank for a huge move and getting ready this year. And but going through the buildings, I think it's going to be really exciting because everything looks great.
Yeah, it does. I look forward to it.
Okay,
I'd like to celebrate the fact that tomorrow morning we'll begin 2 days with new teachers. We have 16 new teachers.
Really?
And we've hired all of our teaching staff except one. And we're hoping to get that taken care of soon. And we have a total of 370 teachers for the coming school year.
Will the new teachers be here?
They will be here beginning at 8 o'clock. We'll have refreshments first thing. You're welcome to come by about 8:15, so they can meet you if you like.
okay. Now, on to review of the tentative meeting agenda.
Our tentative meeting agenda includes, as a snapshot of success, the Richmond High School Band. So they are coming very, very soon. There will be a public hearing at our next meeting for the Capital Projects Fund, the Bus Replacement Plan, and the 2013 budgets. It's the beginning of the end. Of the
I'm not sure that warranted true love.
Well, you'd have to have been through the whole summer with us to understand. We'll also have a wrap-up of the first week of school activities, and talking a little bit about how what we're projecting tonight actually took place. We'll have our donations and the rainy day fund transfer. We will also have an approval to advertise for the new Dennis Gymnasium bids. We forgot to mention that, or I never asked about that, but I meant to bring that out to you, that there's a timeline for that. And we would like to advertise for those bids. We'll see how they come in. There's more support information that we would like to share with you, so we'll be providing that as well. There will be a projects update on the master plan, and then on our consent items, they're the regular items, but we will have the filing of the monthly financial report and an assessment calendar. if you recall, one of the calendars we're trying to build right now would be an overall calendar of board meetings, contracts, assessment. We're trying to put that together in a digestible format. But this is a standalone item. I think that that's it, as it stands.
Anything else? Meeting is adjourned.